Don't bang on. Don't bang on about the technology, bang on about the outcomes that you can deliver for the local authority, for the public sector. So that it's perfectly possible to take a very forward-looking, proactive, strategic view of those opportunities and then build your pipeline based on those. Within those forward-looking, within those expiring contracts, 2/3 of the value actually sits or is concentrated in 20 contracting authorities. So the MOD, for example, has 454 live IT and technology contracts, in total worth 893 million, rolling off in the next 7 quarters. So it's possible to get into the data and to kind of prioritize those with the most value or the most volume, or those with the contracts renewing in your sweet spot. And that's it. By way of key findings, I'll just recap. The market was worth £10 billion by invoiced value in 2020 full year, and is growing at 8% a year. It's driven by increasing contract volume, not pricing, and there are live contracts worth £8.5 billion coming up for renewal in the next 2 years, which is your trigger to build pipeline. So my question to you, really, which I think Chris will pick up, is: are you waiting for things to happen? Are you responding to tenders or waiting for competitions? Or are you actively pre-engaging to shape new opportunities proactively? Very good. That's my bit. I think I stayed within the time. Thank you very much. I will stop sharing and put myself on mute. Thank you.
Cheers, Gus. Just within the time limit, perfect, and some great detail there and overview. So I'll pass on to Chris, and in the meantime, if anyone wants to ask any questions, which we'll get to at the end of the webinar, get them in the Q&A box, and I'll put them to the guys afterwards. But yeah, Chris, take it away.
Thanks so much, Patrick. That's great. Gus, thank you for your amazing introductions and seeing in there. Fantastic and great to be here. Thank you also, Laura and Patrick, for inviting me and having me along. Delighted to be here, I have to say. Yeah, we do a lot of work with various trade bodies, but I've always found Enterprise Ireland is probably one of the most proactive. And don't sound like I do a deal book. It certainly sounds like you're doing the good work there, so well done. So I am got quite a lot to crack through today, so I'm going to canter through if you don't mind. So first of all, really, we're going to talk a quick introduction to us to understand what Advice Cloud are about. I'll talk you through what are frameworks in the UK public sector consent, and talk you some of the most popular, touching a bit again on what Gus, overlapping a little bit what Gus says there as well. There is a framework coming up called GCloud 13, which we've been asked to go into a little bit of detail on, which we will do. Then talk through some top tips for success from where we understand things, certainly with the amount of work that we've done over the past years with a number of suppliers. And then we've got a few resources to share, including a framework pipeline of new frameworks that are coming up over probably the next 10 months, I'd say. So without further ado, a quick introduction to us. We are public sector procurement specialists, okay, and GCloud consultants as well. And we work with both buyers and suppliers. I'm an ex-Gov buyer myself, don't hold that against me, please. One of the reasons I started out on my own, to be honest, is because I can actually start talking to people about what the reality is like rather than being bound by rules and regulations. And so since October 2014, when we started, we've worked with over 350, actually it's more than 350 now, clients successfully listed across all frameworks, nearly 600 services successfully listed, over £800 million has been earned as a direct result of our work. And a large percentage, 3/4 of those successful organisations are SMEs. In terms of framework success, we've got 100% success rate across all frameworks. We offer over 28 to date, including some extremely difficult ones to get on. And we just had digital services and programs awarded yesterday. 5 out of 5 on that. Was very, very difficult, taking a supply chain down from 2,000 down to 50. and we got 5 companies on that out of 50, so 10% that were ours, and they're all SMEs. So a few of our private sector clients we work with, a good range, well-known tech brands, but to startups and SMEs, and some of our public sector clients as well. Okay, so that's about, we also have some very good advisors, and here's my beautiful and lovely team. Ignore the chap in the top left-hand corner there, please. So without further ado, what are frameworks? Okay, so for the uninitiated, I actually did a bit of Google search and was trying to find a definition, and I got something that I thought was quite good. So a procurement framework is an agreement to put in place to provide a range of providers that enables buyers to place orders for services without running full tendering exercises. And frameworks are usually based on large volume buying or specific commodities and services. So as Gus it's basically a preferred supplier list, all right? But this is just the start of the journey. A framework is something that will enable you to trade, make you more what we call buyable, all right? Now, it's far too many times over in my life, I've had companies come to us saying, we want to sell to you. I'm like, well, I've got people that already do that for me. You want a framework? No, we're not. We're sorry, you're too difficult to buy from. Move on. Okay, and that's just the reality of it. There are thousands of suppliers out there that can do tech, and there's lots of innovative stuff going on, but vast majority of stuff we can already get. And there are a really wide number of payment providers in the UK public sector, and I've listed all of the acronyms there. I won't go through them. The largest being Crown Commercial Services, who buy on an enterprise UK-wide scale, but there are NHS, local government, education providers, private sector providers doing stuff on behalf of gov. Yeah, there's a lot of them. Trust me, there's an awful lot. But as Gus has already outlined, we tend to focus on the ones that are busiest, are the most successful. And by that, we don't just mean they've got a few million through it. We're talking hundreds of millions of pounds usually. All right, and a big wide supply chain. Are there different types of frameworks? Yes, there certainly are. We have what we call a traditional style, which is 2 to 4 years long. I think on the new regulations now, they can go up to 5 years, but no further. And some examples of these would be network services 2 or tech services 2 from Crown Commercial Services. They're limited numbers of frameworks. They're very difficult to get on, and they will last. But the problem with these is that once they're open, they're only open for a short amount of time, and then once it's locked in, no new suppliers can get on them after that. All right. Then we have what we call the digital style, which is GCloud, DOS, Digital Capability of Health. These come out once every year to 18 months. They'll do a supplier refresh, so you're not locked out, and they're much more busier. They're much busier, as you've seen from Gus. There's like 900 successful suppliers on GCloud from his data, and they're designed to bring small organisations into the supply chain. All right. They're then dynamic purchasing systems, giving a couple of examples there, Spark, the automation frameworks. These are open all the time for suppliers to get on, and they typically last between 2 to 4 years as well. But there's no limit on the time. You can apply to those and get on at any time you like, all right? They're not used that much though, just as a word of warning. You can get on them, but you don't see a lot of business going through it. And then there's neutral vendor, which is something that's relatively new. Everything ICT, Pagabo, Bloom, these are run by private sector organisations backed by a public sector organisation, and they run frameworks for that on a neutral basis, which you can usually access anytime. And the problem with them is they're not very transparent. So we don't know how much goes through them. But the Bloom is very, very busy. The others I'm not so sure about. Okay, we did some research a few years back and found over 400 live IT frameworks in the UK public sector, but we think there's about 300 round a month, and it's just based on tech. Okay, so for someone who sells public framework access, it's a busy time for us. These are some popular frameworks, okay, with some detail on there. I'm not going to go into detail, I don't have time for that, but the slides obviously will be shared and you'll have them all there. So GCloud 13, it's the CCSC's, Crown Commercial Services, who are the biggest provider of frameworks in the UK. Okay, they cover the whole beat, all the devolved administrations, all the sectors can access their frameworks unless they specifically say not so. All right. There's over 10 billion in sales since it started. It's 10 years old now, GCloud actually, and I've been involved since version 1, and it's a revelation in the way things are bought. Over 42% of those 10 billion sales go to SMEs. Now, if you remember back to the dark old days, well, I think it was something like 80% of the UK's public sector supply chain or central government went to just 20 suppliers. Yeah. It was an awful, awful time. As a public sector IT buyer, it was just terrible. Yeah, you just got the same old rubbish from people not interested in delivering extremely expensive stuff. Yeah, Now there's a whole massive supply chain that's open up to SMEs. Okay, so GCloud has been one of the drivers for this. It's in its 13th revision that will be coming out next week, and you can sell on 3 different lots: cloud hosting, cloud software, and cloud services. I've given you some examples there. There is a new lot called Lot 4, which is being designed as an end-to-end cloud migration to cloud services ability. You have to supply a bunch of things, and this one is going to be a lot more difficult to get on than lots 1 to 3. So you cannot sell bespoke software development, but you do. Co-location, that's from another framework. Recruitment style services, yeah, and hardware or licensed. And what I mean by licensed is in commercial off-the-shelf software, boxed product. You cannot, so this is supposed to be for consumable cloud software, okay? So there are workarounds for this where you can have on-premise stuff, but more than anything, it's supposed to be for consumable stuff, okay? Just to bear that in mind. It is designed for SMEs. It's a very, very low barrier of entry for non-UK firms. There is no requirement to have a UK domiciled company to be on here, all right? We get companies on from all over the world, all right? However, that being said, to be buyable and be tradable, you may want to start thinking about that another time, all right? But it's not a requirement. It's a relatively straightforward application process with minimal compliance requirements, okay? They won't be asking for financial information. They won't be asking you for your security information. They'll ask some background checks to make sure that you're not a terrorist or not doing environmental disasters and things like that. But otherwise, it's pretty much a tick box affair. Then when you get to the actual where you need to list your services on a catalog, it's called the digital marketplace, you'll need to provide an online description of services, a service definition document, which is your technical brochure outlining how you operate. Pricing, it's open to everyone can see it, you can see others, and it's a fantastically transparent way of doing what we call a downward ratchet for pricing. I'm not paying £100, £1,000 per I don't know, gigabyte of storage that we're used to, or what a megabyte of storage we used to do with certain company names. You supply your own terms, which is unique. You know, no one else, no other framework allows you to do that. There's a rate card in there for any professional services, certainly for lot 1 and 2 stuff. And if you need to put, if you're a large organization, I think it's above £30 million trading, or 35 million, you need to provide a modern slavery statement. Okay. The timeline for GCloud 13. It's for lots 1 to 3. It will open next week today. Okay, you need to register on the digital marketplace for this, and you'll be notified, or register on our website, and we'll tell you when it's out as well. Okay, it will close on the 18th of May. All right, that means there's a big long window of application here. All right, bear in mind though that normally this used to be a 35-day window, and this used to be open once a year. It's been 2 years since GCloud's out, pandemic stuff, you know, that's why. You'll get your intention to order on the 26th of August, and then September the 8th will go live, and you'll be able to trade. People will be able to trade with you via the digital marketplace. But obviously, as Gus says, don't wait until then. You've got a fair bit of work to do beforehand, getting those generating the interest in your lovely stuff. For lot 4, for the end-to-end service one, again, the same timeline, opening and closing on the same date. Intention will be later. Now, this is going to be a little more difficult to apply for because we think. Don't have this, but you think because they're later, it's going to be limited numbers. Yeah, it will be through a different portal. The link will take you onto the I think it's Basware, the supplier portal that they use, or it might actually be whatever Bravo is. Jagger, that's it, Jagger. And so it'll be a few months later with the intention to order and go live about 6 weeks, 6 to 10 weeks later, 6 to 7 weeks later. But this will be an evaluator, and there'll be limited numbers on this, I think, initially. All right, there's not a lot of information out about this at the moment. So in terms of framework pipeline, what's coming up? So obviously GCloud next with the dates. Network services 3, anyone selling any form of voice and data type solution, wide area, local area, including things such as CCTV type things, and some security, certain network type security stuff. That one is an absolute must. It's one of the more difficult ones to get on. Happily, we have a very, very good story with network services 2. Huge quality scores we'll be getting on that. There's a brand new framework that's replacing data and application solutions called vertical application solutions. Yeah, and that's due in June. Mobile voice and data is planned for April. We think it might be expected in July. Okay. And then you've got technology products and services 3. So anyone selling hardware like PC, servers, networks, things like, so not networks, that's network services. And it's very closely around services. That's due around December, probably February if we're lucky. All right, these are our guesses, by the way. There's nothing from CCS on there, so don't hold us to it. Top tips, the last little bit. So try to make yourself viable, as Gus said, you know, get upstream, yeah, get upstream, get speaking to people, network, find partners. You know, there's a whole range of people you can speak to and things to do to get on with these things. Be aware that frameworks are not a source of inbound leads. All right, don't just sit there and go, oh, this framework's rubbish, not seeing a lead. Frameworks are useful. It's just a door opener. Okay, it just makes you more viable. So have a plan for once you're on one. Do the upstream work. Yeah, work on your value proposition. What you're selling, if you're selling into banking or finance, not going to work in the public sector. They need to know the value. All right. Talking of which, understanding your social value and how it applies to UK Gov is critical now. We have one of our customers earned £40 million in net new business of 7 new contracts last year based on the social value work we did for them. Yeah, it's a critical, it's 10% minimum of a tender. So if you think about it in terms of a 100-meter sprint, that's a 10-meter head start you're getting in a 100-meter sprint. And unless you're an unfit chap like me, that's pretty much a winner. All right, understand how the framework works. You know, don't just sit there and run it, you know, and go into your buyer. They often don't know how it works, but understand how that framework works. You can adjust your strategy for using it a lot better. They work differently. Yeah, train your teams on how the UK public sector buyers and frameworks work. I used to spend hours a day talking to people about the basics, about the regs and the regulations. This stuff's available information. Use it, and finally, just really do good work. Yeah, you do good work, word gets out. People want to buy you. We do talk a lot. All right. We do, honestly. We do talk to each other. It may not look like it, but we do. But how can we help? We've got a bunch of different services to help here, all outlined here. There's a link here to book some more if you want. We're designed to help SMEs and micro organizations that are new entry into market to help quickly make the best of public sector experience and get a good, decent return on investment. There's, you can book a call with us here, and also we've got a webinar in far more detail about GCloud this Thursday. I think that's it. And some socials. Follow us. We're nice people. We don't hassle you. That's it. Thank you very much.
Great, Chris. Thanks very much. And within the time as well. So perfect. So yeah, we'll move on to the questions for you guys. So a few have already popped into the box. So first one I've got here is, how do you find out when contracts expire by organization?
Shall I take that one?
Whoever wants to take it.
Well, look, like I said, all of this is based on open data, so you can go to free sources, but you could also come to a paid product like ours, and you literally, if you want to know all upcoming cloud contracts, all live cloud contracts in local government in the northeast of England, with a value of between 1 million and 10 million that roll off in the next 24 months. That is a really easy search to do. So that's it. The government is good at publishing the underlying data. Companies like ours exist to kind of sort through that to make it accessible to you. And you can slice and dice it by keyword, by sector, by location, by date, by anything at all, even by competitor. If you're smart, you'll look up all your competitors' live contracts and then kind of start, you know, building a pipeline based on challenging those.
Great, thanks, Gus. I hope that's answered the question.
I was just going to jump in, actually, Patrick. Chris, you might answer this. Should you be waiting for contracts to expire?
Fine. No, you need to be up there. The decision's already made for 6 to 9 months before that contract's expired. They have to for procurement purposes. Yeah. You think about, there's a budget cycle within the public sector. Okay, usually it starts to around February time, around now. In fact, the local government starts in like December, and then the budget gets baked in, ready once. If there's a March budget, confirm, but the settlement's usually there now. So come April and May, they'll have allocated the funds and what they're going to do. Yeah. So, they'll need to know where they're going to spend when that contract expires. Those whole procurement, a lot of the big procurements are planned. Yep. So they'll start market engagement already to decide what they want to do. So you need to be in certain things. If it's a big network one, you need to be talking 2 years in advance. You're not going to wait until the contract expires. A bit late.
Thanks.
Great. Thanks. We have a second question here. So maybe for Chris again, and maybe not one you can give an exact answer to, but what's the cost to help a company get onto GCloud 13, for example? Is it one price or ongoing costs?
Well, I mean, you can do this yourself, obviously. You can self-submit. Yeah. So anyone who's a micro organization, go onto the digital marketplace, have a look for clients, organizations on that are similar to you, and maybe just improve on what they've done. Okay. That's just one way of doing things. All right. And we advise a lot of people like that. I've had someone come to me and said, I'm waiting for some 10 grand's worth of HMRC credits. You don't need us for this. Okay. This is for when you really want to really start thinking about professionalizing and stressing. That's where we can help you. So our services will start at £3,500. Okay. We're very open and transparent with that. But it all depends on the number of things you want us to do. And we've got services up and built around that as well. If you want to know how the thing works, we've got an online training course for like £200, which can help frame a lot of stuff you need around. That's designed, we put that in the pandemic. So it was designed to help organizations that were struggling. So, I mean, there's ongoing costs with us. No, you will need to pay a relevant fee with CCS, which is, I think 0.75%, but only when you're trading. Yeah, until then, you just do your annual returns every month, which is quite sad when you do that, because you want to be reporting sales.
Good stuff. Thanks very much, Chris. And another question here. So how open to engagement are buyers to meeting suppliers not currently on the framework? And what's the best timing prior to expiring contracts? So whoever wants to take that, Gus or Chris.
I think Chris actually said it before. I mean, within reason, the sooner the better. You are selling into organizations which are cash strapped, they are time poor, they've got lots of, probably even more important priorities than procurement. And consequently, they have a kind of bias towards inertia and the status quo. So if you want to get them to think differently, to do things differently, to buy services from you instead of the incumbent that they've been doing business with for the last 5 years, within reason, the sooner you engage and make the case in a kind of educating sort of way, as opposed to a kind of hard selling sort of way, the more you're talking and thinking about the outcomes for the body that you're selling into, the more successful you would be. So I don't think there is a number, but like Chris said, I'd be speaking to people easily 1 year before these big contracts expire. It might be different for the long tail of of just kind of renewing services, but for the bigger stuff, at least a year before.
Absolutely, I totally agree with Gus there. Oh my God, I lost my train of thought. I was going to think about that. There's a lot to be said for buyers doing early market engagement, okay? And it's massively increased during the pandemic. All right, we do a lot with people. We use GCloud quite extensively to actually get a nice number of suppliers we can invite on. Say, look, this is what we're looking to do. Can you help us here? Are you interested? But there's lots of places to look. There's another trade body in the UK that does stuff. They're the private trade body, and they do lots and lots of market engagement. And a lot of them are free. So there are an awful lot of things, but local government do loads. So they're open to meeting people, but you just need to be kind and patient and get them at the right time. And often it's good to find a partner if you're brand new to it, without any brand rep. Find a partner that who's trading already in there and ask them to help you get in. Probably the best strategy, I'd say, for brand new at.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I can just kind of echo that. A lot of people use our services not just to find the underlying opportunities, but to find out which partners, resellers, SIs, whatever it is, primes they should be going through. So when you look at these big public bodies, they have their favored kind of, you know, primes, and each one works with slightly different ones. So the company that you might want to go through to sell into HMRC is probably very different to the company that you'd want to go through to sell into Essex County Council or even the Home Office. So so those relationships with resellers are really key.
Great. That's probably leads on to a question that I actually have from working with a lot of smaller businesses. So how common would you say third-party procurement is in the UK? And I suppose, are there drawbacks to taking that route?
You mean, sorry, Chris, you go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was just going to ask, yeah, could you just clarify what you mean by third-party procurement there, Patrick?
So if you're not on the frameworks yourself, and you're selling through someone who is on the framework already.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, there's I mean, pass-through always was a massive part of, I mean, there's some resellers now who do very well out of that. But one of them is the UK's now largest reseller. Pass-through is huge, which is one of the reasons I was quite I'm much more attuned as a buyer. I much prefer the bigger supplier frameworks because I don't have to go through those people, but they're a necessary evil. They do hang around now there. And 30% for the SIs, they have a specific target that they are asked for. 30% of their supply chain into Gov has to be an SME. Yeah. How well they're audited on this, I don't know. Yeah, but there is a target. Yeah, or an aspiration.
And those resellers are also kind of, it also muddies the data a bit. So that data I was showing about the SME market share being only 17% of the total spend, to be clear, that was the direct spend with SMEs. It is possible that SME subcontractors working through a variety of primes are earning, not just possible, but probable that they are earning a lot more, but that information isn't available or transparent in the same way as the direct relationship.
Okay, great. I've got a couple more questions coming in on the back of that. So is there a risk of working through a reseller that the smaller supplier will not be able to appropriate value, and the bigger company has all the power? So I'm not sure if that question makes
it does make perfect sense. Yeah, it happens. Yeah, it does happen like that. Some are, it all depends on the type of organization you're playing with, okay, and that you're being forced to play with. Yeah, some people are bullies, and some people are really nice and value their supply chain. And you can quickly work out the people that you want to work with and you don't. This comes with experience and getting used to it. But the beauty of being inside is that you're building a network of contacts, and providing you're doing good work and they know who you are, at some point you're going to be able to, they will move on, or you're going to move. They will come to you and say, look, we don't want to work with these guys anymore through you. We just want to work with you direct. Can we? And lo and behold, it's just how we've seen and how it works.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, a couple more questions here. So any tips on how to identify a market segment where we could have a competitive advantage to win a contract?
Yeah, I'll take that. There's a lot of different ways of looking at it. Why don't you search the data for contracts being won by your top competitors? If you think you've got a USP against them, find out what their book of business is, and then challenge their incumbency in those contracts. You might look for keywords, within any given subsector. There are things that, you specifically do well. Look for contracts that mention those keywords. if you're a smaller SME and you've only got, you know, a capacity to deliver contracts up to a certain maximum value, then don't bother, you know, kind of searching through all the bigger ones. There are lots of criteria, geography as well. If you're national, you can look nationally. If you're regional, just kind of look at the ones in that region. Chris, what do you think?
I think you nailed it, Gus.
Good, good. I've got a question here. What is aligned professional services?
Okay, so think about, I'm a public sector authority. Yeah, I want to migrate to the cloud. Let's say I've still got some stuff on premise, on hybrid. I want to migrate to the cloud. All right. I may have already chosen that cloud. I may not. So I might want someone to help me choose my cloud provider to understand what I've got. Now, I'm probably not going to go to a cloud provider on that, because guess what? They're just going to sell me their cloud service. So I'll go to a consultancy, a professional services firm that can help me choose that cloud, help me migrate to that cloud, manage it, secure it, do stuff with the data, retire it, and then move on to something else. It could be different professional services organizations. It could be someone to help me come and do some sexy stuff with some data. Yeah, it might be someone who can come and help me fix a security problem I've got. But it's people-based consultancy, professional services firms.
Great, thank you. Just a couple more then. We've got 9 minutes left if anyone else wants to ask any questions. But in terms of the GCloud 12, which was extended because of the pandemic, obviously, do we see GCloud 13 being extended as well for that period, or not?
I mean, probably likely. TCS are overwhelmed with work at the moment. They're short-staffed like a lot of people. G13 clearly will go live in September, depending on where they've got to with their new platform they want to produce it on. You know, otherwise you'll be coming back to market again this time next year. So whether they want to put themselves through that or not, or make some time, you don't know. Hopefully they will. I mean, yeah, I still miss the days of supplier refresh every 6 months. Not because I run a frameworks business, but because there's new stuff being put all the time, and new cloud services, new suppliers, you know, there's new things, and having to wait a year, 18 months for new things, kind of, I like new stuff. I like to see it. So, you know, getting new suppliers, it's an exciting time. It always is. But likely.
Great.
Likely.
Great, thank you. In terms of direct call-offs from GCloud, is there, I suppose, how likely are they as opposed to competitive tender?
There's no competitive tenders on GCloud.
Okay.
It's set up, it's a catalog. Okay, so when a buyer goes on there, we type a few words in. I mean, this is the start of my journey. Someone came to me and said, when I was a buyer in a local government organisation, and said, if you type in 3 words on this website, you can spend £1 million with me. And as a buyer, I went like, really, can I? Thank you, Mr. Salesperson. Then went away and spoke to some people and said, is this true? And find out that it was. And you know, it's possible to do that. But you're under GCloud rules, you can have a number of people in a search. Yeah, so I can get 5 people narrowed down to a search for something, and I can clarify with them about their service. And then I can make my decision based on their listing, their responses to my clarifications, and whatever the firm price is. Okay, you shouldn't be negotiating price. It's a commodities service framework. Yeah, what you see is what you get.
And actually, I can just vouch for that. We've just been awarded a contract, a public sector contract under GCloud, and it was non-competitive in the sense that Chris just outlined. But we won it because, you know, because we've been making the case and meeting the people and building our brand, and then they look at us, they look at other people, and if we've done all the legwork, then they're free to award a contract to us. So it really does happen in real life, but that's because, you know, we've been kind of making the case for our service, you know, in the year, 2 years, up until that need actually came to fruition.
Great, thank you. When do the DOS and DCFH frameworks expire?
Well, DOS in effect is pretty much, I mean, it's been extended, but so digital services and specialists, DOS has been split into 2 frameworks now. Digital Outcomes 6, which closed for applications on Friday. So it should go live around April time, I think. Yeah. So DOS 5, I think, is around until probably the end of January next year. I can't remember, sorry, the date off the top of my head. But that's likely to be once outcome 6 goes live, that will then end. The digital outcomes specialist 6. DS&P, which is the specialist side of the thing, has just been awarded yesterday, so they're now in standstill. I was flying back from somewhere yesterday and I got lots of happy messages coming as I came in from it was a nice way to land, I have to say. And so that will go live probably in the next 2 weeks, and when that does, then the specialist element of DOS 5 will end.
Great, thank you, Chris. I just spotted a question in the chat as well. I think we've already answered it, but so can we piggyback on another supplier to sell via them, or just use for getting information? But I think it's we can sell.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. So I think that is all the questions we have for now, and we're actually on time, which makes a nice change for everyone. So unless anyone else has anything to add or close on, I think we'll finish there. So again, thanks very much, Chris and Advice Cloud and Gus and Tussell for all your hard work and coming on and sharing your information. And I hope everyone who was on the call got what they needed from it. So yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you all for everyone. It's been amazing.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. Thanks, Patrick. Good call.
Great. Thanks, everyone. We'll send out the slides afterwards on the recording. And if you have any questions moving on from this, get in touch with myself or Laura as well.
Thanks a million, guys. Cheers.
Have a nice day.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.